Oh, I think we're live. Hi, Ashish. Welcome to Venture with Grace.
Hi, Grace. It's good to be here, and thanks for having me.
To start the show, I want to give a quick shout out to our amazing sponsor. This episode is brought to you by Verivent. If you're a GP or LP looking to simplify the capital raising and deployment process, Verivent is here to help. Trusted by over 800 funds and managing more than $2 billion in transactions, Verivent offers a secure, streamlined payment platform designed specifically for private capital markets. Say goodbye to manual reconciliation and repeated follow ups. Raise and deploy capital faster and with greater transparency. Ready to make your fund operation smoother? Visit Vervent.com or actually use our bit.ly link down below and see how easy it can be. Okay, so to start the show, I would love for the audience to get to know you a little bit more. So you were a software engineer intern, and then you were a founding engineer at a company, and you co-founded your own company before your entire, I guess, like investing journey. Why don't we talk about like what were some core things that you've learned early on in your career kind of shape you into who you are?
Yeah, so I'm an accidental venture capital investor. It's not something I was looking forward to doing in my life, but
Mhm.
it kind of just happened, and I'm very thankful that it did. So I started my career as a founding engineer for early stage startups, where I really understood how applications on cloud are built and hosted and deployed, and how do you monitor those in production. And 2009-10 was an ideal time frame for early stage startups
Mhm.
because VCs were not investing. There was this financial crisis. So even though we had good product and good customers, the outcome wasn't ideal. And that got me thinking, what should I do next? And I wanted to be closer to the customers. Ultimately, you can build the product, you can build the tech, but if there are no customers, and getting that customer product market fit right is so critical. And I thought one of the things I really need to do is be a product manager so that I can talk to customers, understand what are they really trying to do, and translate those into working feature set. That worked out really well. I worked for a company in Boston called AppNeta, and we did application and network performance monitoring. So very deeply technical products. If you if your customer calls you and tells you, "Hey, I cannot use your product. Your application is down or slow," how do you do the root cause analysis? That was the fundamental thesis. But we could take a request all the way from end user browser across the network into the application and tell you exactly where the problem is coming from. Is it the browser because you have too many windows or tabs open? Is it your network where you might be losing some packet, or you are not be getting the capacity that you're paying for? Or is it the application itself? That was quite transformational because I could use my technical background and gain the trust of customers. Ultimately, trust is really important whether you're working with customers or variety of different stakeholders within your enterprise. And that company got acquired, and I was like, what do I do next? And thought I would go to a business school, and from there I would start my company. And once I was there, I started doing some internship with VC funds, and they were like, "Hey, we're looking at this deal. Can you help us with some diligence? We are trying to build this market map." And I thought that's pretty interesting.
Mhm.
And this way, I thought I would build relationship and trust with these investors who would potentially fund my next company.
Mhm.
8 years in, now I absolutely
Mhm.
love this
Mhm.
other side. I think some people refer to venture as dark side. I think it can be the light side. I think VCs and founders together can get a lot done.
Mhm.
And when you have the right intention and you have the right support system for the founders to
Mhm.
help them really bring their vision to life and help them get customers and scale, I think it is transformational for the person, but it adds a lot of meaning to the kind of work that I get to do. So that's why I really enjoy what I get to do. And right now I focus on all things enterprise infrastructure. So that includes AI, which obviously there's a lot happening
Mhm.
right now. We can talk about it, cloud infrastructure and cybersecurity. So those are the areas that I focus on, and love working with technical founders who are building secure, scalable AI systems and cloud systems.
Totally. I wonder maybe we could start with like since we're just talking about like Sierra Ventures and why don't we talk about like, how I guess like maybe if you could give us like a little bit background of the fund as well as like, you have also built a CXO advisory board and why don't we talk about like the platform set as well?
Absolutely. So Sierra was founded in 1982. We are
Mhm,
currently on Fund 13, which is a $271 million fund. And we like leading seed and Series A rounds for ambitious founders. And then we put our
mhm,
network and expertise to work. So the fund has been around for a long time. This is Fund 13. There is longevity. There is incredible track record, and the people are incredible. And that's why I decided to join the firm. We have operators turned investors. We have people who actually built and sold software and exited amazing companies, which is what makes it really, really interesting. Now, when it comes to helping founders, what you'll realize is founders talk to a lot of VCs, and it's a two-way street, right? VCs are talking to founders all day, and in a way, I would say every VC pitch is kind of similar. Hey, we're going to help you with customers. We're going to help you with strategy, whiteboarding, XYZ. Your next round is done if you work with us. But at the end of the day, I think it's really about people. So as a founder, when you're thinking about who do you want to work with, think about, is this the person I want on the board? Is this the 7 or 8 year journey? And this is the right person with me who will add value on the cap table. You don't want investors who are at a golf course after the investment is
mhm,
done. One of the things that when I started in venture, I was one of the comments I made to the partner is, hey, we just won this deal and the work is done. And he was like, Ashish, the work just starts,
mhm,
because now you just have earned the right to help the founders and work closely with them. So at Sierra, we put our expertise and network to work. And what does that look like? Obviously, I talked about the team and the people. We have a CXO network, which has more than 80, 85 Fortune 1000 CIOs, and they are available to founders. They want to see what's the latest and greatest in terms of technology that's coming down the pipe. They want to work with ambitious founders. Then we have a product and engineering leadership council as well. And first weekend, we had a roundtable discussion with some really amazing folks. And the topic was enterprise agents in production. What are the challenges? What are these agents? I think if you think about the evolution of AI itself, obviously there were chatbots and then there were co-pilots. Now we're talking about agents, agentic architectures and whatnot. But when you actually use your secure data in your private
mhm,
environment, it is not easy to deploy. And I was just blown away by the discussions that we had. Like one of the topics was obviously code gen agents. When you use windsurf or cursor or tools like that, what is the adoption like in the enterprise? And the insights were really incredible. So we make those insights, those networks available to founders, and then we are working all the time, evening, weekend, whenever the founder needs us, we are there. Which is basically our the way we work with founders. And we reach out to founders with a thesis. When I talk to a founder, I've already done the work. At least I have a broad opinion on where the market is headed. And if I'm reaching out to you, I really do think you're probably among the best person to build this company. And that thesis driven approach really helps us connect with the founder and build a layer of trust. And along with that, if you can, add value before we even make the investment, that is very, very helpful. Hope that gives you context on
mhm.
how we operate and the areas which include like enterprise B2B, which is the core focus for Sierra.
Mm. I wonder, okay, so let's start with like I guess like the AI cloud infra slash AI agent, the whole like different domains. So like I think maybe we could start with like your investment thesis in AI. So obviously you guys have invested in like Cohere or like a lot of the premier company in the um general like infra slash cloud space. You have invested already got acquired. So for example, Nimbella, I think like it's Shippa. And then, so why don't we talk about like the overall trends that you're seeing in the AI infra space, and then we can dive deep into certain companies from like how you meet them to how you think about like investment, putting investment into it.
Absolutely. So I started building cloud application in 2008,
Mhm,
and 2006 is when Amazon Web Services was launched. Everything was new at that time. Before that, what used to happen is you would have your applications, which are typically monolith architectures, where you would manage your own data center co-located somewhere. You manage the end-to-end process. You put the rack together, you put the appliances, connect them, all the servers would be there. You would invest in a lot of capacity. And cloud was a fundamental shift. When cloud happened, basically the question in the mind of the buyer is, why would I kind of let go of this core data and core applications that I have, which are my crown jewels? Why would I let somebody else manage that for me? So there comes this new wave of applications and companies called DevOps, which basically added a lot of insights and visibility into this black box, which is your cloud. So that journey from on-prem to cloud took a full kind of 10 to 15 years. Initially, there was a lot of skepticism, but then with time, you would have tools that would help you build these applications, ship those at scale. Instead of shipping once a month, you're now shipping multiple times a day. And the architecture itself over time evolved. You're thinking about, instead of a single monolith giant code base where if you want to make a single change, there is so much dependency on the people, whether it's your designer or product manager, and everybody has to collaborate. Well, let's break that down into these smaller modules called microservices. These are small applications. You would have a team of maybe 5 to 7 engineers that can manage a microservice. These microservices interact with each other. So what happens is, like, now it's easier for you to scale and manage this ecosystem. But then if you break a monolith into 1,000 microservices, that itself causes complexity. There enters something called Kubernetes. Kubernetes basically made it possible for you to manage these and this entire ecosystem, millions of containers running in production at scale. So cloud became a reality. Along the way, what we were seeing was data just exploded in terms of volume, in terms of how much data you're generating, variety. You have structured, unstructured, semi-structured data, and velocity. Instead of data getting generated, at regular cadence per day, it's like every second you're watching a TikTok video, you're liking or commenting on social media. It's generating live stream, and there's ton more data that's getting generated. So then cloud is a thing, data becomes a thing, data becomes really complex to manage. Now, how do you start thinking about data itself? We saw this big data wave about 8 or 10 years ago. Over time, there was this promise of AI, that AI is going to solve all of your problems magically. But up until like 7, 8 years ago, what was happening is it was really your standard statistical methods like linear and logistic regressions that were being presented to the enterprise buyers as AI. So you would have your data, you would build these systems on top of it and present it as AI. Well, what happens? Now end user is actually disappointed because, hey, you promised me that there's all of this magic that's going to happen. I would be able to solve my support tickets. I would be able to have happy customers. None of that is working. Then what happens is 2017, this paper is launched, which is, obviously we all know, attention is all you need. And suddenly AI becomes real. This fundamental shift that was expected like 15, 20 years out is here and now. All of a sudden you have these bots that are really intelligent. You have all of the world's data available at your fingertips. All you have to do is write a really good prompt. And obviously there is complexity on how you retrieve the data, how it is managed, what kind of models you build, and all of that. But simply, like, now enterprises started figuring out, how do I change my processes and my initiatives to adopt this new fundamental shift that has happened. So that's where we are. With AI, obviously there's still a lot that is still to be figured out, in terms of the model size. What is the right fit for you as an enterprise? Should you go with a, I don't know, trillion parameter model which can write songs for you and do all this kind of magic stuff, or should you have a smaller model which is very optimized for your specific use case, which could be fraud detection, which could be customer support, customer success, sales, and feed it your private data? And even there, how you push these systems into production is not easy. You cannot just take a general purpose model and feed it the data and expect everything to work. Over there's a complexity around, is it closed source, open source? Do I build it end to end? So buyers are, in their mind, there's a lot happening. But again, if you think about how founders are moving, they are moving at speed of light. They're talking about the latest and greatest. They're talking about retrieval augmented generation. They're talking about graph rag. They're talking about graph technology. But when you talk to buyers, they're like, hey, I don't even have data in the right format, which is labeled, that I can actually feed to these models. So that's where my problems are. But ultimately, I think this is a fundamental shift. I see this as once in a lifetime kind of opportunity in terms of AI. It is the next big wave. Obviously, we all agree, after like internet and browser and mobile applications. So a lot of excitement, and I just get excited about all things that are happening in the infra space, whether it's AI or cloud.
Yeah, totally. I think so. I was at the Berkeley agentic AI event this weekend, and then I saw there's like a trend of well, excuse my non-technical language. So like I feel like there is essentially there's like a huge trend of people using small language model or like just like expert language model into like different subsectors, and then people were seeing um in the future, people may not require as much GPU in the future. So like I guess like I wonder what's your thought on that, because of like nowadays like obviously there are so many like cloud GPU happening, and then everyone's like building the tools and shuffles for the AI industry. And then we can go into data. Obviously, I feel like that's very important
Yeah,
there as well.
yeah. I think that's a very important point. There was also a paper published by NVIDIA, small language
Mhm.
models are the future.
Mhm.
But I think in general, that's the truth if you want to go after the enterprise
Mhm.
enterprises and sell to them. Because think about how the company is structured.
Mhm.
Obviously, you build the product, somebody has to sell it. So you
Mhm.
have customer support, you have your sales team.
Mhm.
Then at the time of renewal, somebody has to work with customers and make sure there is no churn. Then there is your customer success.
Mhm.
On the back end side, obviously, engineering team has to work closely with the developers, with the designers, UX engineers. There's a lot of complexity around that. For each of these functions in an enterprise, can you have a general purpose compute model that will solve all of these problems? Well, if you do try to do that, you need, let's say, 700 gig of memory to load the model. You have something that works really well maybe for one function and one use case, but not quite as well for the, let's say, customer support, because you don't have access to customer support data and ticketing data for, I don't know, last 5 to 10 years. So I think that what the world looks like in the future in the enterprise is people will pick and choose, similar to what happened with DevOps. Every function, every team, they have their own best in class tools, and then they figure out how to integrate those. A similar kind of structure is coming along here, where different teams will pick and choose models. Like if you go to Hugging Face,
Mhm.
there are 1.4 million models available. And then based on different benchmarks, you have different high performing models, small in size, that you can grab, feed it your data. Like out of the box, these models are like 80% accurate.
Mhm.
Once you provided the custom data for your use case, you take it to 90-95%.
Mhm.
And it's that journey from 95 to 100 or 99% that's really, really hard. 100%, I don't know if that ever happens, because ultimately these are probabilistic systems. Each decision is a probability, and you keep multiplying probability,
Mhm.
you're not going to get to 100%. So that's why they will always be human in the loop.
Mhm.
But talking about small models, that's where it becomes really interesting. So think about edge use cases. You have your mobile device,
Mhm.
um, your
Oh
data.
yeah, that again. So like it's like your storage in your like in your own phone instead of like actually storing in the cloud and stuff. So like people like to have things on their own device for security purposes and stuff like that.
I think there is security. There's also the battery usage. You don't want
Yeah,
to burn
yeah, yeah.
battery. If you have people out there in the field, your sales representatives, how do you interact with them and make sure these future devices that we'll have, like the shape and form is still TBD. Is it going to be a phone? I don't know. I don't think anyone knows. Is it going to be those glasses that Meta is working on? Maybe. Perhaps there is a new form, a new function, and then you will have this agent, kind of like Jarvis, that's always available to you wherever you are. But for those devices, the latency is going to be really important. You want to make the decisions at the edge. You want to make sure that you don't need too much RAM or storage or battery life. So I think the thesis is small language models are the future. That's why we invested in Cohere a long time ago, when Gen AI was just happening, because we saw OpenAI and others were going after these massive models. But if you go to the enterprise, their needs are different. The way they ship these products is very different. And I would add one more thing. There's also the question of modality. Now, obviously, there are chatbots. You give them a text prompt, but there's this new wave of voice as the way we interact with these agents. And when you deploy voice in production, these smaller models will matter a lot. So I think we are actively looking at voice, at small models, and happy to chat more about kind of that thesis as well.
Sounds great. Also, Abhinish, sorry, I can't pronounce your name, but yeah, he's a great insight on SLM. Okay, great. So why don't we talk about, yeah, like you mentioned about like voice AI agents, and then maybe, okay, to start, maybe if you want to like walk us through one of the portfolio company that you have invested in, from like meeting the founder to thinking about the market to, I guess, like to think about like, winning the deal and exiting. And then we can dive into like our current trends.
Sure. I think this is a great setup, and I'm happy to chat about a portfolio company where we sold the company to Cisco last year. It's a company called Isovalent, and the journey starts about four years ago
Mhm,
when I was doing the thesis work on cloud infra.
mhm,
So all the trends that I talked to you about, whether it's the architecture or
mhm,
the where the application is hosted or who is managing your servers, the next wave was this entire complexity around these smaller modules,
mhm,
containers. Docker became a thing, Kubernetes became a thing. But imagine, instead of managing 100 servers, you have a
mhm,
million containers running into production. What are the challenges that you're going to run into? Let's say a few
mhm,
of these containers, go out. Who gets alerted? How do you even get alerted if they are just not even live? They're ephemeral in nature. You can spin them up when you need them, and they're gone in a matter of seconds. And if you need logs and traces later to figure out what actually happened, who had access to that critical data, and if the containers are not there, well, how do you solve that problem? The second part of it is, how do these containers discover each other? Right?
mhm,
Millions of containers in different geographies, but they have to communicate with each other to solve a request. And the third thing is access control. Who is allowed to access what? So those were some of the key trends
mhm,
that we were thinking about and had a lot of customer conversations. At that time, one of the ways you would solve it is this thing called IP table. So similar to a phone book where you had a name of a person and a phone number, you would have these like giant tables stored somewhere on your router and your entire networking infrastructure, where you would have the IP address, and the application or the server itself. But it breaks when you move things so fast at scale.
mhm,
So there was need for a new architecture. And what I saw was there's this thing called eBPF, extended Berkeley packet filter. So it's an open source project. I saw that it was gaining traction. The GitHub stars were going up. Well, by the way, GitHub stars now, I don't know if that's a real proxy anymore, because a few years ago it would take you 5-7 years to get to like 5-7 thousand GitHub stars.
yeah.
You start a project and like 3 weeks in, hey, I'm at 15,000 GitHub stars. Like, okay.
Yeah, why is that? Actually, I don't even know what's a benchmark. Because I think last year we had someone, I think it was like Jordan from Redpoint came on, and then like we're talking about like the GitHub star was supposed to be like, if it's above 8K, that's like a really good benchmark. But nowadays, I feel like, yeah, it's like very bizarre. But like, why is that?
Yeah, I think there's just the market is moving so fast. There is just so
Mhm.
much interest in AI. So I'll come to that, and let me
Okay,
finish
sounds
the
good. Yeah.
the previous question that you asked. This is like, how do you actually win a deal and deliver
Mhm.
value, and then the entire life cycle.
Yeah.
So Berkeley packet filter, they make your operating system programmable. So before that, what you need to do is, if you want telemetry data from under your application layer from your operating system itself and set those policies in place, you would have to write new modules, push that code out, and eBPF made it possible for you to do it automatically. So like,
Mhm.
thesis became clear, problem statement became clear. Now it's time to reach out to the founder, and then we activated our entire network, direct outbound to the customer, to the founder, meet them on Slack channels. Obviously, if you have an open source community, you want to make sure that the community is very engaged. You are delivering enough value so that at some point they'll pay for the product. But not so much value that it's very hard to monetize, and that's always a tricky balance. And then we opened up our CXO network, and ultimately we preempted the round. So this is one of the things we have done. If we see a big pain point, we see a great team, exceptional technology, go in early and help them win. Now, completing your question around GitHub stars. So at this company, I saw over time, as I was building trust and relationship with the founder, the GitHub stars were going kind of like slow growth, and ramp was there. Now the ramp is just 0 to 15,000, 20,000 in a matter of weeks. So and the reason that is happening is, there are 40 million developers in the world. A lot of them are on GitHub. All of their code lives there. As you think about experimentation with AI, every other day there's a new model. There is a new way of building things. Uh, you know, 2 years ago, vector databases were really hard, and turns out now every data store has some capability that's vector store that's available. And if all of your data lives in some data store and the vector database is kind of baked into it, it's very easy for you to upsell to your existing customers. But that increases complexity for developers. Well, I have to build this entire pipeline. Oh, guess what? Now there is a new model where all of the context can be fit in the large context window. So you don't need to do that anymore. Well, I need to change it again. And a project on GitHub that helps me rapidly iterate and solve these problems without breaking apart all the systems that I put in place, suddenly we'll see that kind of rapid ramp on GitHub stars. And I think that's kind of what is driving this sudden adoption,
Mhm.
and spike in GitHub stars.
For sure. I wonder, so like for infrastructure tools or like so I'm just currently looking at like Isovalent. I guess like for it to be a part of Cisco, like do they have to have like a particular so like I guess like when you're investing in them, like obviously I think most investors hope the company just like IPO or something, but I guess like for when you were chatting with a lot of CISOs, what are people buying in the infra space? And then I feel like what is the difference between like selling an infrastructure tool versus let's call it like application?
That's a fantastic question. So we have our CXO network, and we
Mhm,
make our portfolio, and not just portfolio. We see a lot of companies. We have thesis around AI, cloud, and cybersecurity.
mhm,
So we are happy to walk the key decision makers through our thought process. We'll open up our portfolio and interesting companies that we are seeing, and what we get from them is they will open up about the problems that they are solving. So I'll give you one specific example. um, SOC automation is a key problem for any chief information security officer. Traditionally, what you would have is 50 100 SOC analysts sitting in your security operations center, and their job is to look at alerts which are coming in from multiple different tools to make sure that your entire infra is secure, your applications are secure, data is secure. And to do that, you have to go through like thousands of alerts a day and even an hour, coming from multiple different tools. Each event has some context, but then somebody has to connect multiple events together to figure out if this is some kind of breach, some kind of attack that's happening or not. Um, and and that problem is really complex. Now, as a CISO, if you are expanding to new geographies, like it's very hard to transport that talent and that understanding and knowledge base to a new geography. So guess what? You have to hire somebody new in that area, and it's a painful process. Every geography has multiple companies vying for the top tier talent, so it becomes really, really hard. So I think SOC becomes a key pain point, and especially with AI now, it's possible to solve some of those problems. You can you can use AI and agentic AI in a variety of interesting ways. Now, without going too much into detail, this problem statement came from the buyers. They're like, "Hey, this is a big pain point for me, and what should I do?" Well, hey, this is our thesis. Over time, we have talked to a bunch of different founders. Why don't we have a conversation with few of them? And ultimately, one thing leads to another. Founders get design partners out of these kind of process. Sometimes that leads to customer introductions, and once founders land one of these large accounts, they become your reference logo, and you can go after a particular vertical and keep expanding. So the thing about infrastructure is there is a real pain point. there is a burning hair on fire problem that needs to be solved right away. It's not a nice to have kind of thing either. Like, you want better, faster, cheaper. That's always the driving force for CIOs and CISOs. In terms of adoption, the question for the founders is it top down, where I need to sell into the top org, or is it bottom up, where founders and for developers are basically experimenting with multiple different tools?
Mhm.
The beauty of this is once you land an account, it is very sticky. It's very hard to replace your enterprise infrastructure.
Mhm.
If it just works, then as a buyer, I'm willing to pay top dollar. I don't care much about saving money on that, because I have a pain point to solve. I just don't want to take that risk. I would rather
Mhm.
spend $1 million here and not worry about, instead of somebody coming to me saying, hey, I'm going to, I don't know, save you $500,000, and then the product is not top tier. They are looking for the best technology, the best founders, and then they are willing to pay and write a large check.
Mm. I wonder, so like so like the audience is at Abihi. Okay, so he asked like what people are buying in enterprise AI infra space. I'm sure like as you just mentioned, I think the CIO or like any,
Mhm.
I guess like generally the CISO is like the decision maker in that domain. I think I have like a piggyback question on that. So like, how do you decide what to buy and then what to build? Like, how do you decide if this thing is like buildable by Cisco itself versus like I just like, the incumbent won't really come at you.
Yeah, I think build and buy is always an interesting decision for these large organizations. The problem is, infra is such a complex area where it's very hard to build differentiated technology, and ultimately you want, you know, some tool that solves the problem that you're trying to solve better than anyone else at a price point that you can afford. So it's very hard for you to create a team. Let's say I'm going to create like this 20% team, and
Mhm,
then everybody will align on our goals, and we'll have a 6 month period where we'll go through multiple iterations, and then
mhm,
finally we'll ship something. All of that work can be done by founders in 2 weeks. That's the speed at which best founders move, and that gives them advantage. So I think this notion that just putting together a large team in a large organization and throwing kind of money and resources at the problem will solve it for you, that hasn't worked. Otherwise, OpenAI and Anthropic would not have won against Google and Amazons of the world, where they had all of the world's resources and data centers and data at, like, there was even a classic comment made by Satya Nadella a few years ago, where he had a team of 1,400 AI engineers. And his question was, how is OpenAI so much better when we have been focused on this for such a long time? So this thing keeps happening. So the best buyers, they're always interested in figuring out what's the latest and greatest that we can integrate, then we can like really take to the next level through our channel partnerships, through our current customer base. So that's where this build versus buy motion is very interesting, because we keep seeing that enterprises will invest in, hey, I'm going to build this not invented here syndrome is very, very strong with many enterprises. But at the end of the day, after spending 6 months to a year an initiative, they realize I've spent millions of dollars and resources, and I'm just not where I need to be. And the market, by the time, guess what? The market has shifted, and now there is another new thing. And that's where founders who can pivot quickly and adapt to that market reality, they will win in this space. So you will see the different types of buyers. On the security side, you would see Palo Alto Networks or Zscaler. They're really good
mhm,
about identifying incredible companies and technologies, bringing them in, and then opening up their channels and their customer base to help them scale. Then you would have, by the way, I'll give credit to a few companies like Meta and Google, where
mhm,
they're not so hot on acquiring companies, but they would rather build it themselves. It's a different type of culture and mindset, which
mhm.
I think it's very hard to create once you are at a certain scale.
Mm. I guess like one of the question that I had when you were talking about like Palo Alto Network or Zscaler, a Zscaler. So like I feel like I hear about them a lot. Also, there are companies that have been there for a long time. So like, why do you feel like they have such a longevity in these like the infra space to like last as long? Because I feel like the technology has been like generation after generation. So I wonder what is like I guess like the secret on like maintaining like a big enterprise company.
Yeah, so I think even there, these companies rapidly adapt and adopt newer technologies, and whenever there's a new
Mhm,
wave, they
mhm,
will rapidly pivot and make sure that they are far ahead of the competition, at least a 6 month to a year advantage. Now, that advantage could be through building something or acquiring something. Those are the two things. Let's
mhm.
talk about AI and what is happening with Nvidia and Jensen Huang. When
Yeah.
I was in university, one of my friends was really bullish on GPUs, but
Mhm,
his use case was, I'm a gamer. I really need the best in class GPUs that can render the images
mhm,
and the games on my screen. And over time, what happened was there was this research team that was trying this convolutional neural network, CNNs, and they started using GPUs instead of CPUs. And what happens was, hey, instead of serial processing, you can now break the problem down into parallel compute, and these GPUs, guess what, are really good fit for this new wave. And Jensen Huang basically rapidly pivots the company, and instead of just focusing on gaming infrastructure, now it's a different company going after AI. And he made that early bet. So a
mhm,
lot of these initiatives, I think, come from the very top.
mhm,
So if you look at Palo Alto Networks, I think Nikesh Arora is just incredible CEO who sees these trends early and he makes the move fast. Then he has to convince the board that this is the right company for us to acquire. Then you have to think about your strategy. Is this new tool cannibalizing what you're already selling, or is it additive to your end-to-end strategy as you go after your cybersecurity use cases? So I think that culture, the willingness at the top to experiment with something new and then rapidly adopt and innovate, I think that's helping these companies have longevity. You're seeing the same thing in AI, in the cloud world with Amazon, for example. Started as EC2, but over time they've continued to iterate. And if I think about Amazon, I think of it as a large factory of thousands of startups, and every person, every team is basically empowered to make their own decisions and build products that solve a specific problem, and you have to be better than anyone else. And in infrastructure, typically, it's kind of a winner take all market. You would have like two or three winners no matter what segment you are in, and if you're outside of those three, kind of doesn't matter. You'll be around, maybe slow growth or flatline growth for a long time. But if you want to truly change the world with the product that you're building, you want to be in the top two or three, and those either become massive businesses like Datadog and others go IPO or New Relic, or they get acquired like Isovalent, and then they continue their journey and continue to scale.
mm. I wonder, okay, so one of the audience is asking, obviously he loves your insight. I don't know how to pronounce your name again, Bakashar from YouTube. Okay, so I wonder, so like he said, curious how Sierra is thinking about AI in native infra and vertical SaaS startups right now.
Yeah. So we are actively investing in AI startups. And as a matter of fact, we are thesis driven investors. So one of the thesis work that areas that we're really excited about is voice AI and small models.
Mhm,
We kind of talked
mhm.
about it, but the
Yeah.
use cases are very clear. I think this is the future. So we're active looking at the space.
Mhm,
We actively are working with somebody, and hopefully we'll share with the world what that company is very very soon. Agentic AI is a big focus for us. Agents, how do they communicate with each other? The networking layer becomes really, really critical, because if you look at your cloud servers, I know that OSI model, it took a long time for it to evolve from your physical layer to networking layer, communication layer. That basically makes sure your packets from point A to point B are
mhm,
delivered and there is consistency and retry. But a system like that does not yet exist for agents. So that is an area of focus for us. Then, so that's the infra layer. Obviously, if you have a model that helps you solve these problems for specific vertical use case, that's very interesting to us. The horizontal technology and vertical GTM, that becomes really interesting. I'm just talking to you about the different themes, and the reason is the change is so fast. Like, I know you probably hear about it every single day.
mhm,
This is the fastest things are changing, and I haven't seen a market like this like ever. So the entire infrastructure layer is getting, the stack is emerging, it's the layer is getting rewritten. So we are very bullish on that, and actively working with founders. So the three areas I talked about are small models, voice AI, networking layer for agents, and obviously inference becomes a key thing, because your models are moving from your pre-training and post-training to finally going out into production. And I think we are still early, even though you might look at the market and say that for XYZ vertical, winners have emerged. I think it's still too early. We are on a massive super cycle. This is a 20, 30-year wave, and we are just in kind of, I would even say, wave zero of this one. So the best companies are getting formed right now. So for any founder who are listening to this right now or will listen to this in the future, if you have a fundamental idea, you cannot keep thinking about, and you're obsessed about it, and you have the vision to change the world, we'll make time for you, and come talk to us, and we'll help you.
I wanna can you double click on like the agent part, just because lately I just hosted my own like founders dinner. A lot of them are like YC founders who are like young and then building the voice agent space. I just see a lot of like vertical applications to it, like learning a new language or that kind of stuff. But in the enterprise SaaS space, like what are voice agents generally are used for? And then what are things that you find investable versus what are things that you feel like are not really gonna be like game changing in that space?
So let's think about how the voice system has evolved
Mhm.
over time, right? You take a system that's text to speech or TTS models, which basically are really good at taking a text and converting it into a different tones or different
Oh,
dialect.
yeah, like the LLM, voice LLM, like the Google thing. So like it's just like you put
Yeah,
information
there's,
and
there are
then it's
multiple
pop.
players in there are multiple players in that category.
Mhm.
So that's text to speech. You have your ASR, which is your speech to text models, which basically, hey, Grace is saying something. I'm going to convert that into text. Then I'm going to take an LLM and understand the questions that Grace is asking, and then generate a very intelligent response. And then it has to feed into this text to speech, and ultimately the voice on the other side, helps us have a communication. Whether that's, you speak one language, I speak another language, or you're asking something fundamental about my business, and I have to look into our knowledge base and come up with a solution. So the voice enabled tech stack is emerging. So
Mhm.
but today it's complicated. You have to take these three different pieces and you have to stitch them together. Well, guess what? Now there is a new layer, orchestration, similar to what happened with
Mhm.
DevOps long time ago. And what they do is they remove this complexity of underlying tools for you, and that layer becomes very interesting. But ultimately, your customers don't care about how complex your architecture is or how amazing your technology is. They are there to ask questions and get responses. And that could be your customer calling in your call center, making an appointment, or changing your existing appointment, or complaining about a product, or returning it. Today many of those calls are dropped because you have X number of people managing those inbound call volume. We all have called airlines where we are on the call, hey, wait for like 1 hour. Well, guess what, my flight is delayed and I have to catch my next flight, and I need to be on that flight, and I don't want to miss that, but I can't catch hold of somebody. All those problems go away. This is a very simplistic example, but this is a daily frustration for all of us. You call a healthcare provider, you call a restaurant for reservation, and you're on the wait and you waste time. Well, with AI systems, these voice capabilities are so good that you can't really tell if you're speaking with a human or a voice agent. That is applicable to your real estate transactions. Hey, I need to sell my house, or I'm going to buy a house, and can you help? And what does the market look like? So there are multiple different use cases. Now, as a founder, you can build a company focused on each of these verticals. You can take a you know API from some vendor and build it yourself. But what's going to happen is that's going to eat into your gross margins. Well, I guess what 30% of whatever I make is going directly to the TTS or the SR provider. That becomes a kind of losing value proposition, because then the market also becomes very competitive very quickly. Like in AI, what we're seeing is no matter how you segment the market, there are like 15, 20, 30 competitors. So how do you have an advantage? That's where I think the vertical integrated stack is going to be the future, where you go after a particular vertical that is growing fast, and you have this entire tooling set that's your own, and you own that. So that's our thesis. Now, obviously, the stack is going to emerge. We'll see how kind of this entire market shapes out. There are tools today which are voice to voice, where their claim is you don't need to build any of these tool chain. You speak, you say something, and then the voice is generated right away. But guess what? In enterprise use cases, if you have to call your Jira or Asana and get context from your knowledge base, this voice to voice doesn't really work. And ultimately, if you take all of that and put that context in the model, then the model becomes very large, and you cannot then start using it in production. So there's a lot of complexity there.
Mm, for sure. So like for the complexities, or like I guess like when you mention about these like vertical integrated stack, um I wonder like which part among these like uh architecture, or I guess like these different layers that you feel like will have the most like possibility of like generating revenue, or like having like $1 billion or like $10 billion revenue kind of success these days.
Yeah, so obviously we are about to kind of do some work here, so we'll be
Mhm,
bullish on the founders we back. But really, I think it's too early to tell. I think right now, if you look at voice itself, there are transformer architectures that are being used. Then there
mhm,
is these things called state space model, which solve the complexity around a voice when it
mhm,
comes to transformer architecture. I can guarantee there will be another fundamental breakthrough like
mhm,
this year or early next year, because this whole notion around reasoning, it needs a fundamental shift. I don't think transformers take us there. I don't think state space models are really the solution. So it will come down to like the founders who can see the latest and greatest research papers that are getting
mhm,
published, and be the first ones to move those to production and make them production ready, and they are the ones who are going to win.
mhm,
um, if you were to ask me, like if I look at the voice or other models right now, which one is going to be a multi-billion-dollar outcome, um, I, I think if you ask anyone, they're going to make a mistake, because it's still too early to tell. I think the market is just happening. Obviously, there's a lot of interest, and because of that VC interest and a lot of dollars
mhm,
chasing small number of deals, what's happening is you would have, you know, a company at ARRX, and the valuation would be at 100x. And a lot of the time, that's not backed by fundamentals, whether it's the technology or the market side itself, or when the market happens. So some of that behavior is happening right now. I know I'm changing this into a
mhm,
different direction, but I think in AI world, these valuations are problematic. So even if something is really hot right now, that doesn't mean that they are going to win the market and be a great exit. So
mhm,
just watch for that. I think next year things will be clearer who are the actual winners and who are sitting on those inflated valuations. Because guess what? When you raise the next round, you have to justify why
mhm,
were you valued at $500 million or $1 billion valuation. If you go to market and if you try to raise 100 million or $1 billion or $5 billion rounds,
mhm,
at some point, the dance will stop, and you have to actually show the product and the differentiation, and show that there's a massive market and customers are willing to pay for that.
mhm,
And I think that happens in I don't know, end of this year, next year. I think that timeline keeps shifting, but it's coming.
mhm. I wonder, okay, so I want to maybe like cover another audience questions. Gaurange asked, obviously your insight is amazing. And then he asked like about voice video coding agents will all require to search, provide enterprise value for AI agents. What are your thoughts on multimodal search and then context engineering?
I think search is a big problem, and especially in multimodal search, where you have images, videos, and you want to search. Like, take a simple use case.
Mhm,
This recording is going to be available, and I want to
mhm,
go back and, hey, what did I say about evolution of AI or evolution of cloud?
mhm,
I don't want to sit down and watch the entire entire video.
mhm,
And in the future, if you think about experiences like Google Glass or the Lens or all of the AR/VR technology, so much data is going to be generated that's going to be multimodal. You will have videos, the video and different frame of the video will have so much context,
Mhm.
um, that somebody will have to solve that problem. And today I think it's unsolved. The reasons are the search today does not scale,
Mhm.
especially with the volume of data that we have. So it's obviously an area of interest. So if you're building something very exciting in that space, we would love to chat with you.
Totally. Okay, so I wonder, so like let's talk about I guess like AI agent. So like I feel like everyone is building some sort of AI agent space. This is like such a big thing, but like what are the infrastructure that's like powering the agent, or like I guess like from, since you are primarily focused on like the um infra and then AI cloud space, but I guess like I feel like nowadays, like, for the people who are building vertical agents, like, what's your thought on like which agent would last from your perspective, like coming from like the back end?
Let's first talk about what is an agent,
Mhm,
right?
mhm,
um, if you want to use a model or LLM and make it available to customers, there
mhm,
has to be a product form that's easy for the customer to consume.
mhm,
There has to be consistent experience, and each time they interact with the LLM, they shouldn't have to start afresh.
mhm,
Somebody has to keep context. Like Grace and Ashish are
mhm,
chatting. If we chat again, if this was an agentic conversation where you create a Grace agent, I create an Ashish agent, and they're
mhm.
talking to each other. Next time they chat, they should have all of this context
Right,
available.
right.
Any question that is asked in the future, any response that's provided in the future builds on top of that context which we already have shared. So agents are complex today because you have to think about, first figure out the intent of the person who asked the question. Then you have to break it down into tasks, so somebody has to do that task scheduling.
Mhm,
Then you have to call a bunch of different tools, like everybody talks about, hey, I'm going to have an agent create an itinerary and book my tickets, and I'm going to go on a 5-day vacation to Hawaii. We are not there yet, but we are getting there, because here, you need integration with your airlines, you need integration with hotels, you need integration with your payment processors and providers, you need customer support. All of that integration and tooling needs to happen. And then you need to add memory, because LLMs don't have contextual memory, so you have to manage that somewhere. Take it all together, and you take an agent and you add the context. It becomes kind of like a living version of an identity. So it needs an identity then, right? Because our interactions in this context versus our interaction, let's say at a happy hour, may be very different, but a lot of important information is shared in both these two. So will those be different agents with different IDs? Then will we have different access controls for different IDs? What kind of data do these agents have access to? Those are still like a lot of questions that need to be solved for enterprises. Humans to agents, I think that the future is going to be teams of humans working with agents. So instead of a 10-person team today, you're going to have 4 humans working with 6 agents. You may pay the agent half of what you pay a human, but I think that's where we are going. Because if you look at, now let me go back to engineering itself.
mhm,
You will have entry level engineers who are starting, then you have their managers. Ultimately you have your architects and principal engineers who are the experts.
mhm,
Think of it as a Maslow's hierarchy. Like at
mhm,
the bottom of the pyramid is this entry level engineers,
mhm,
where you tell them, this is what I need you to do, these are the guardrails, and this is the timeline within which I want this task to be done. It's pretty well defined and well contained. AI can do that today, so I think that layer disappears. And as AI and specifically these agents, as they become better, I think they're going to keep moving up and keep eating into different experts as well within software engineering. At the end of the day, you will have some experts who are like 10x or 100x engineers, but the question won't be, can you build these systems? The question will be, how effective can you be when you use AI agents? So I think AI agents are the future. today they're complex, complicated to push into production. If you are interacting with an agent and buying a car, and you ask them, hey, can I have 80% discount? What if the agent says yes?
Mm.
You deliver that product, like how do you set those
Mhm.
guardrails? And that itself is a question, because trust, verifiability, guardrails, that's a big problem. So there's a lot happening in agent space. I think before we have agents that will talk straight to the consumers in different verticals, these fundamental problems need to be solved. The beauty of all of this is happening in parallel.
Mm.
If you look at cloud infra, first cloud happened, and then your Ubers and others came along that built on top of that thing. Now AI is building on all the work that has been done by cloud infrastructure and GPUs, and building on top of that fundamental innovation. But now, moving AI forward and those AI applications forward, that work is happening in parallel. And it's an interesting challenge for the founders. And by the way, we are very excited. And any
Mhm.
founder here, like if you're solving problems in
Mhm.
either vertically integrated, horizontal, vertical, we don't care. Like if you are visionary and want to change the world, we want to work with you.
Mm. I wonder, so like since we just talked about cloud infra and like what is that like the new things that AI bring into the cloud infra? I think we talked a little bit at the beginning, but I guess like what are some, I guess let's call it like three things that you feel like is a key differentiator from
Yeah,
the the AI version of it basically.
yeah. So I have invested in the space which is at the intersection of AI and cloud, or AI
Mhm.
and security. See, the thing is, today you cannot separate these markets. You cannot separate hardware from software, from security. There is a convergence that's happening. There is vertical integration which is happening. You cannot separate AI from cloud. Even selling motion, you're selling part of the value prop to the CISO and part to VP and your CIO, and
Mhm.
somebody has to sign off on the product before the sale goes through.
Mhm.
So, impact on cloud infrastructure, let's talk about simple things like infrastructure as code, where your teams are sitting and generating your Terraform scripts or Helm charts, doing a lot of work, which is critical and essential to move your applications to the servers in production so that customers can consume those. Well, a lot of that can be automated today with AI. And AI agents can read your code and generate your infra scripts automatically. So that becomes, instead of infrastructure as code, it becomes infrastructure from code. and
Mhm.
and, and it's real. Companies are paying for it. The second thing is, think about observability use cases. So my background is primarily in AI, cloud, and observability. I
Mhm.
built those tools as a product manager. When your customers are interacting with your app, they're generating a lot of data that comes in multiple different formats. Logs, which are simple, like this is what happened at this time, this is the event, and this is the context. You throw it in some file somewhere. Traces, which is end-to-end connection of different components of your application, which are kind of fired to serve a request from a customer. That could be your database, your cache, your application server, web server, all of that tied together. And third is metrics. What is my CPU utilization? What is my GPU utilization, memory utilization? And all three are necessary for you to understand where the performance degradation is coming from. If your customers start complaining about, hey, I can't add an item to the cart, or your app isn't loading, those are the three things you would work with. What happened was, a few years ago, there was this entire wave of AI ops, which is like, hey, we're going to have these models which are going to be your linear and logistic regression. You're going to
Mhm.
hold it on top of these three different types of data sources, and we'll tell you what happened. A lot of promise led to customer dissatisfaction with the product delivery.
Mhm.
Today you can take those three different type of data sets. You can build an agent on top of it, call it a SRE agent, or a
Mhm.
AI agent, that is your platform or production engineer. And it can take you 85-90% there, which is a fundamental shift. So as your agents and AI move into production, as agents are talking
Mhm.
to each other, I think observability becomes a key part of it. And this AI initiative is powering all of that automated analysis and research. So that's another area of interest for us.
Mm, for sure. I want to be mindful of the time. Maybe we'll wrap with a quick fire round. Okay, so what's your favorite book?
Oh, the book that I'm big into history, and I have like probably read a lot of books on evolution of venture and technology. So there's this book called about George Toriot, who is the father of venture
Mhm.
capital. If you want to learn about how VC evolved and the entire ecosystem, and ultimately this is a massive tree of all the VC firms on in Boston and Silicon Valley, and those are
Mhm.
all connected, and the first investments and how fundamentally they changed the way people considered or thought about risk. I would highly recommend that book.
I love
I think
that.
it's called Creative Capital.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm like, so I think yeah, it was like the eight, like the original eight VCs, like not a VC the firm, but like there's like eight different uh people
Are you
who are
talking
like
about
kind of like mentored by uh Arthur Rock.
there
Wait,
is a
am I
that
crazy?
that's
Yeah, I may be
the
crazy.
Citrus 8 from Intel that who ended
Yeah,
up
yeah, yeah, yeah,
starting multiple different companies.
yeah,
Ultimately, like Silicon Valley happened because Shockley Semiconductor was founded here,
yeah,
and
yeah,
that's because this guy, his mother-in-law was sick, and he had to move to Silicon Valley to take care of her. Shockley Semiconductor, that place wasn't ideal for founders to work at or employees, and they left and kept starting new companies. I think the same wave is happening every single cycle. Now it's AI. People are leaving, the big players and starting their own thing, and that's
sure,
why Silicon Valley is special.
for sure. Okay, so who made the biggest impact in your career?
Ooh, that's a so there are a few people I can talk about. By the way, I believe in mentorship. So
Mhm,
if you don't have mentors, seek them, find them. Mentorship is a
mhm,
two-way street.
mhm,
You will learn a lot, they will learn a lot, and you both get a lot out of it.
mhm.
So I've had the pleasure of working with incredible mentors, starting with Matt Stevens, who was the CEO of AppNeta. He helped me understand how you build products and sell to customers. And then Ashmi, that engineering capital, he taught
Oh,
me how
there's
to
a past guest too.
dive really
That's
deep
awesome.
into technology and work with technical founders. And
Yeah.
Umesh Padwal at Thomvest, who really helped me think as an investor end to end.
Mhm,
How does all of that come together?
mhm.
So those are the people, and obviously, on my family side, my mom has a big impact on who I am today.
I love that. Who would you invite to your dinner party?
Tesla, Nikola Tesla.
Oh wow, invite me. I want to
If I could.
go. Where can we find you outside work?
After work, I'm typically just hanging out somewhere, organizing events. I just love community. Working with people gives me energy and joy, and it adds meaning to every day. So you'll find me organizing some event or happy hour and talking about all things life, philosophy, and technology. It's not just tech.
Wow, love that. Wow, Ashish, thank you so much for coming on to the show today. It was such a great conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Grace. Really enjoyed it.
Let me quickly unstream.